think you know the real stories of executed queens. Forget a noble death. We're talking about women accused of incest with their own young sons, whose severed heads, rumor has it, blushed with rage after being slapped by the executioner, who were tossed into a dirty arrow chest instead of a coffin, and whose king of a husband got engaged to his new mistress the very next day after the execution. This is the story they'd never tell you in school, and you're about to learn the facts that will change everything. Her mind was broken long before the execution, so you buckled up. Today, we'll be talking about an execution that was merely the final chord in a symphony of monstrous torture. Everyone knows how she was killed, but what they don't talk about is how her mind was shattered long before the guillotine S-blade ever touched her neck. They didn't just want her dead. They wanted her to die, humiliated, crushed, insane. And to achieve that, they used a torture more terrifying than the rack or red-hot irons, the torture of uncertainty. Imagine this. You're sentenced to death. You wait. Is every creak of a door in the hall. Then but no. A day passes, then another. They tell you the execution is tomorrow. You mentally prepare, say your goodbyes to life. And in the morning, the jailer smirks and says, it's been postponed. And this happens again and again. It's like waiting for the results of the most important exam of your life. Only instead of a grade, it's your head on the chopping block. Every postponement is a tiny spark of hope, only to be snapped in two over their knee. Now, add interrogations to the mix. No sleep for days on end. Can you even imagine that state? When reality blurs, when you're ready to confess to anything, just to be allowed to close your eyes for 5 goddamn minutes. In a cold cell that stinks of damp and despair, they shove absurd accusations in your face. Witchcraft, conspiring to murder the king. But wait, that's not all. The cherry on top of this shit cake. An accusation of incest with her own young son. Do you get it? They didn't just want to execute her. They wanted to destroy her, to drag her through the mud, to make her a monster in everyone's eyes. They don't tell you this in the history books. All you get is a dry list of facts and the date of execution. But they don't tell you about the sticky, animal terror of an accusation so vile it's impossible to even process, an accusation that strikes at the most sacred thing. And that's when her psyche just said, enough. During one of the court sessions, as yet another prosecutor read out, yet another load of bullshit, she started laughing, uncontrollably, hysterically, a full-throated laugh. This wasn't a laugh of joy. This was the sound of a mind breaking. The sound of dissociation, when the brain just unplugs from an unbearable reality to keep from burning out completely. In the dead silence of the courtroom, that laughter was more terrifying than any scream. The judges were in shock. They wanted to see a broken woman, but what they saw was something that frightened them. So, when they led her to the scaffold, she wasn't really all there anymore. Her spirit was mutilated, her identity trampled. They got what they wanted. They wanted her to ascend the scaffold not as a proud queen, but as a mad, disgraced woman. And damn it, they almost succeeded. So that's the dark story. Let me know in the comments what you think of these methods. It's brutal, right? See you in the next video. Her execution was turned into a cruel show. Buckle up. Today we'll be talking about how an execution was turned into the most cruel and cynical show in history. Think a queen's execution is some grand, tragic affair. I forget it. In her case, it was a meticulously choreographed carnival of humiliation, and every nail in the scaffold was hammered in with one goal: to drag her name through the foulest mud imaginable. Picture the square. But this isn't a somber silence before a death. It's a goddamn fair. Vendors are shouting, selling ale and hot pies. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, booze, and fried onions. And amidst this partying crowd, especially hired hecklers. Their job, to scream insults, sing lewd songs about the queen, and whip the crowd into a frenzy, so that every last person, even the doubters, would believe she is evil incarnate, a debauched whore who deserves to die. And now, the stage, the scaffold, usually was built high, so everyone could see from a distance. But not this time. Her scaffold was humiliatingly low. Can you imagine? So low that the front rows were right in her face, so they could see every drop of sweat on her forehead, hear her ragged breath, smell her fear. This wasn't for a better view. It was for maximum humiliation, so the crowd could literally breathe down her neck in her final moments. No distance between the star of the show and her audience. And here's the cherry on this sadistic cake. The executioner. They won't tell you this in the history books. For commoners, there was a local butcher with an axe. A crude, heavy thing that often didn't get the job done on the first swing, turning the execution into a bloody mess. But for her, they brought in a maestro all the way from France, a specialist with a slender, razor-sharp sword. Do you think that was an honor? Think again. It was part of the spectacle, to make the execution beautiful, precise, without any messy business. A clean, elegant strike, the perfect finale for their bloody performance. But wait, there's more. To make absolutely sure no one doubted her guilt, they put on a warm-up act a few days before her execution. For men, including her own brother, who were accused of being her lovers, were publicly and brutally executed. Their deaths were the proof. You see, they didn't just kill her. They built the narrative in advance, prepped the audience. The crowd, having watched those executions, was already primed to hate her, to crave her blood. So her execution wasn't just the taking of a life, it was a PR campaign, planned down to the last detail. Every element from the low scaffold to the French sword served one purpose: to destroy not just the body, but the memory, to make her a monster in the eyes of the people. And when her head fell into the basket, it wasn't just the crowd applauding, it was applause paid for and directed by the king himself. Her head lived for another 30 seconds after death. What's up, people? Ready for a dose of some seriously messed up history? Today we're talking about what happens in the very second the guillotine blade falls. Everyone thinks it's an instant, painless death. One moment you're here, the next darkness. What if I told you a head can live for another half a minute after it has been chopped off? That's right, you heard me. 30 seconds of pure, conscious horror. Let's head to late 18th century Paris. The place still up. Picture the stench. It reeks of sweat, fear, urine, and cheap wine. The crowd is roaring, hungry for a blood sport. Charlotte Corday, the young woman who stabbed a revolutionary leader, Jean-Paul Marat, in his bath, ascends the scaffold. She's calmly placed on the board, the lunette locked around her neck. The executioner pulls the rope. Swoosh! The massive steel blade comes crashing down with a sickening, wet thud. Blood fountains from her neck, drenching the wooden platform. You'd think that's it, the end. But this is where the nightmare I'm talking about begins. The executioner's assistant, some big brute of a guy, grabs the freshly severed head by the hair to show it to the screaming crowd. Standard procedure, but then everyone standing close froze. The head her eyes ... were open. They weren't just staring into nothing. They were blinking and, as eyewitnesses later swore, looking knowingly at the people. Her lips were moving, soundlessly trying to say something. A prayer, a curse. Who's to say now? They don't tell you this in the history books. They'll dryly write, execute, but they won't tell you about that 30-second nightmare, about the gaze of a severed head that still understands what's happening. And the body, for a few moments, the body remained on its knees before convulsing and collapsing into a pool of its own blood, as if it hadn't yet realized its brain was gone. But wait, there's more. Just so you understand the full scale of the humiliation, this executioner's assistant, a man named Lee, went and slapped the severed head across the face. And dozens of witnesses swear that the dead head's cheeks flushed crimson with anger, and its face contorted into a grimace of indignation. Can you imagine? Her consciousness was fading, but she was still there long enough to feel the insult. How is that even possible? It's simple and terrifying. The brain, even detached from the body, still has a few seconds of residual oxygen and electrical activity. Facial muscles can contract, eyes can move. It's pure, unadulterated biology. The nervous system's death throes stretched out over half a minute. So next time you see a guillotine in a movie, just remember this story. Remember the 30 seconds of conscious horror that Charlotte Corday lived through. What was going through her mind in those final moments? Fear, or just primal rage? Think about it. See you for the next chapter of dark history. Henry VIII tried to erase her from reality. Buckle up. Today we're talking about what a king will do when his ego is the size of a palace and his ex-wife has become the ultimate pain in his ass. We all know Henry VIII beheaded Anne Boleyn. But the real juice, the truly dark story, begins after the executioner's axe did its work, executing her. Theft for Henry, that was too simple, too humane. He wanted to to wipe her from reality itself, as if she had never existed. And he started with the most obvious thing, her face. Picture this. Messengers are dispatched across the kingdom with a royal decree. Destroy all portraits of the former queen, not hidden in an attic, not covered with a cloth, but burned, slashed, the paint scraped off, so that no one in England would ever see her face again, so that even the memory of it would begin to fade. It's like if someone today hacked every server and deleted your photos, every single one, forever.